I want to start talking about why we're here. And I'm going to do my talk today in two parts. The first part is for the international community. Please, whoever is taping this, the sole purpose for my message here in English is so that the international community, the American government, the British government, the European Union, Australian government, Indian government, all these governments, this message is directly to these governments and, of course, to the United Nations here. We Tibetans, we don't have to explain our situation to any one of these countries and the leaders of the world. They all know very well what is happening with Tibet and what has been happening with Tibet. But what they need to know is history will always repeat itself. Everybody seems to be so scared of China today. Everybody is kowtowing to China. Everybody's saying China is so powerful and China is this and China is that. But one thing people are not realizing, one thing all these international communities, all these foreign governments, the free world, the free countries, one thing these countries are not realizing is China, the way they are functioning, the way they govern their citizens, the way they do business with the world, the way they, ruin environments, the way they buy everything. This is not sustainable. Scientifically, too, it's not sustainable. It is not going to go far. So people need to realize that China is nothing but just a big bully. I call them the blow-up doll. They're like a big, air balloon. They're like this intimidating dragon, but they're empty on the inside. And if there's, the dominoes effect, if there's a slight pin at the right place, they will burst from the inside. The world needs to know that. And I want the world to know why they should support Tibet. Not just for Tibetans and for the freedom of Tibet and for the independence of Tibet. The international world, especially in today's day and age when the world is so globalized, when everything is so connected, there's a very, very fundamental reason to support Tibet. Because when you support Tibet and Tibet's cause, and when you mention Tibet in the United Nations Assembly, it will only benefit the entire world. And it will benefit for many reasons. Everybody's doing trade with China. America is doing trade with China. India is doing trade with China. Europe is doing trade with China. Everybody's doing trade with China. But the reality is none of these countries, none of the democratic countries actually like the Chinese government. We have nothing against the Chinese people. Please, nothing against Chinese people. I have a lot of Chinese friends. This is absolutely political. None of these free countries, none of them, they do not like the Chinese government. But the way economy works is they have to, they have to work according to policies. So now this Tibetan freedom movement, the international world, they need to support the Tibetan cause by impacting foreign policies. And why they should support Tibet? Because Tibet is very, very, very geopolitically important. Two superpowers of the future, already these superpowers. One is China, in south it's India. Two mostly populated countries in the world. Tibet is right smack in the middle of these two countries. So geopolitically, Tibet is very, very important. Environmentally, Tibet is very, very important. So if American government supports Tibet and Tibetan independence, it will benefit the American government also. India, if they support the Tibetan independence, and when I say independence, I want to make it very clear, I do not mean by any means of violence. Our movement is an absolutely non-violent movement. I mean by impacting foreign policies. And it is time that our Tibetan leaderships, our Tibetan politicians, our Tibetan activists, Tibetan artists, Tibetan intellectuals, we need to start writing to our MPs, local MLAs, our governments. We have to figure out ways to impact foreign policies. Every country has foreign policies with China. And it'll take time. It'll take time. Everybody says, oh my God, China is so powerful, China is so powerful. You have to know history. There was a time when the Roman Empire was very powerful, when Caesars were very powerful. Alexander the Great, he was Macedonian. When they were powerful, a lot of these little countries under their occupation never thought that they would be free. Where is Macedonia today? And what happened to the Roman Empire? It did not last because of the way they were functioning. And then look at the Sokpos, look at the Mongolians. Genghis Khan conquered 3/4 of the world. Look at what happened to Mongolians. The Spaniards, the Portuguese. The Spaniards ruled, they invaded and ruled so many parts of the world. Philippines was under Spain for 400 years. And then in our recent time, in the last 150, 200 years, the British Empire, we have all experienced the impact of the British Empire. They were so arrogant at one point. The British Empire used to say, the sun will never set in Britain. The sun has already set. Look at Britain today. And what I'm trying to say is, when you function with evil intentions, when you function with arrogant intentions, and when you function with the idea and the notion of controlling, it does not sustain. It is against law. It is not organic. So we Tibetans have to remember that it will take time, but Tibet will be free. American government, all these governments also has to realize that Tibet's freedom is very important for you guys. It's important for the world. And Tibet's contribution to the world is so valuable. In today's materialistic age, Tibet's contribution to the world is peace of mind. Tibetan Buddhism has contributed so much to the world. So if Tibetan Buddhism is helping millions and millions of people around the world, then it is very, very important to protect where that Buddhism is coming from, to protect its environment, protect its sanctity. So there's a lot of reasons. So our Tibetan leaderships, we have to be defiant. We have to know history. We have to know economy. We have to know how this world functions. But the problem is, the Tibetan politicians, the Tibetan support groups, international communities, we have not been playing politics. What we're doing is we're kowtowing and we're saying thank you, and we're playing this appeasement game. In Tibetan, we keep saying Yarab and Tujiche, Tujiche, Tujiche everywhere. I am not asking people to be marab. I'm not asking people to be rude, but we have to stand on our ground, and we have to face the American government, the Indian government, and we have to give them reasons to support us. We have to show benefit for them. We should not expect them to give us help, because all we have been getting is sympathy. Sympathy. Our Sikhyong right now, our Prime Minister Lobsang Sangay, he boasts about how much funding he's been getting from the American government and from here and there. It is nothing unique. These fundings are given to all the nations and all poor countries, and there's a big reason why. We should not be happy with $3 million, $6 million of funding. We need to sit and play politics with the world. Our Tibetan leadership needs to sit across, head to head, and tell them, if you support Tibet, and whenever, it'll take time. India was under the British government for 200 years. It takes time. But we should not lose sight. So if the Tibetan government, Tibetan parliament, Tibetan exile leaderships, if they sit with the American government and we show benefit to the American government to help us, we need visionary plans. We need strategic plans. We have to stop functioning emotionally only. Just by emotions and just by spiritual talks and Buddhism is not enough. In order for us to have major impact, we have to walk parallel. We have to have compassion in our hearts, and we have to have fire in our belly. And we have to be intelligent. We have to know the world's situation. So I urge United Nations, I urge all the governments, all the free countries, it is a moral responsibility, and there is a lot of benefit for you guys, for the international community, to support Tibet. So we should have renewed discussions. So please support Tibet.